Hello everyone and welcome to our very first any bootcamp of 2025. Myself, Paul Kelly, and this one we're going to focus on REST API essentials for and central. Before I go any further, guys, I just want to make sure that you can both see my screen and you can hear me loud and clear. So if someone can maybe acknowledge that through the questions pane of GoToWebinar, that'd be great, please. Perfect. Thanks, Albert. So guys, this content may contain forward-looking statements regarding future product plans and development efforts. Basically, if we talk about roadmap features today, there's no commitment by me on behalf of Enable to develop any of these features with any certain timeframes that we might discuss, or these functions as well. Just some general housekeeping rules, guys. All attendees are muted for the duration of the course or call. If you have any questions, please use the questions pane to ask them, and feel free to ask questions throughout as you go through the content today as well. If you are having any audio or visual issues, hopefully we won't be, but if you do, please let me know, and the easiest way to do so is via the questions pane at GoToWebinar as well. And just so you're aware, guys, this session is recorded. This is the first time we're running this particular version of this bootcamp, so it will go through our content team and then they will post it up into Enable U and also on the Enable U YouTube channel as well. So if you want to go back over it, it'll be a few days. Obviously, you guys, we haven't run it before, but keep an eye out there and you should be able to go back and review it on demand there as well. Now, for those of you, I'm not sure about this picture, guys, but for those of you meeting me for the first time, my name is Paul Kelly. I'm a head nerd here at Enable. Joined the head nerd team back in 2022, and prior to that, I worked part as the sales engineering team for about 7 years. So I've been with Enable now coming up on 10 years. But prior to that, I also worked for 2 different MSPs over a course of 16 years. So nearly 26 years now in the business, working both for MSPs and obviously more recently with MSPs in my role here at Enable as well. I'm focused primarily on the N-Central platform that encompasses things like automation, patching, security, but you know, as the Fusion project evolves, we try and diversify as much as possible, so try and keep my finger in all the pies as well. I'll always do my best to help you guys, so if you have any questions on the content today or just questions in general, feel free to drop an email at paul.kelly@n-enable.com. If I can help you, I will. If I can't, I'll point you in the right direction. Alternatively, if you just want to keep up to date with what I'm doing, what bootcamps I'm hosting, what events I'm attending, what blogs I'm writing, for example, you can find me at Head Nerd Paul on LinkedIn. And if you're not already connected with me there, please make sure you do go ahead and connect with me there as well. We always love to hear what our partners have to say about our products. So if you scan the QR code that you see here on screen and share your insights about Enable on the G2 website, you will receive an Amazon gift card to the value of $25 US. If you miss any of these QR codes, guys, that I'm going through, just let me know and I'd be happy to bring them up at the end of the session as well today. If you're frantically scanning for or searching for your phone to take a screenshot, or if you just want to go back and grab one of these codes later on, please let me know as well. Also, guys, we have over 500, I think nearly over 600 people now registered to never miss another Head Nerd blog. So if you go to enable.com/blogs, you'll find all the blog contents produced by all the different departments here at Enable. But if you just want the cream of the crop, the very best blogs, and you just want the Head Nerd blogs delivered directly to your inbox, if you scan the QR code you see on screen, you pop in your email address, your details, and we will deliver those blogs as they're published directly to your inbox. So you never have to go looking for them again. We'll deliver them directly to you as well. And I can guarantee you guys, if you sign up, now I know some people are apprehensive of putting their email address and contact details into web forms, but this is strictly for the purposes of sending you the Head Nerd blog information. This information not shared with sales and not shared with other marketing departments. It's just so you can get access to the Head Nerd blogs directly to your inbox as well. Also, guys, by you being here today, you are earning points as part of our Enable All-Star program. We recently updated the points allocation list, as you can see here on the right-hand side of the screen, as to how you accrue points. And if you're not familiar, maybe you're newer to Enable, if you're not familiar with the Enable All-Star program, This is something we launched at Empower a few years ago, and it's basically to recognize and encourage and reward partners who consistently show up for their success. So whether that's attending the bootcamp like you're doing today, maybe you're going to attend the office hours, the Uncentral office hours later on this afternoon or this evening or this morning, depending where you are in the world. Maybe you're going to actually attend Empower in person, or acting as an advocate for Enable. All these things help strengthen the MSP community that we're working in today as well. So as you can see here on the right hand side, this is a list outstanding the various points that are allocated for each event or activity that you might participate in. And then every year at our annual Empower conference, which we're going to talk about next, we'll highlight the top Enable partners that have earned the title of All-Star based on the accumulated points they have over the previous 12 months as well. So the more you do, the more you gain, the more likely you'll be formally recognized for that as well. If you want to learn more about the All-Star program, obviously you can scan the QR code on the screen, or you can go to enable.com/partner-success/All-Stars as well. And finally, in the promo side of things today, I've actually butchered this slide because if you are thinking about attending Empower, maybe you haven't registered just yet, we do have a New Year's promotion, and this was running from the 30th of December up to tomorrow, and you'll save €100 on your ticket. So if you register today, or if you register by tomorrow, you'll get €100 off your registration costs for your ticket as well. I highly recommend you, if you haven't been to Empower before, attending Empower. We have some great peer content. We have some great tracks in terms of what may interest you. You might be more interested in the technical stuff. You may be more sales and marketing. You may be more product focused, for example. We have content for everyone within your organization. It's going to benefit for you. It's a really good couple of days. It's on in Berlin this year. Last year we were in Frisco, Texas. Well, I wasn't, but the rest of the team were. And the year before we were in Prague. I can only speak obviously to 2 years ago when I was in Prague. I really enjoyed it. The partners that I spoke to in Prague really enjoyed it. It's really worthwhile. I know one of my former colleagues who I convinced to go for the first time rang his boss after midway through the day one to say, you got to come to the next one as well. So, it's a really great opportunity to go and meet the Enable team, but also meet like-minded people within the MSP community as well. If you are attending Empower, and this is not on the screen, or this is my own recruitment, I'll actually be hosting a peer-to-peer session, guys, and I'm looking to speak with partners that might be doing automation with AI at the moment. So if you're interested in being a panelist, and it's about a 40-minute session, so you'll be up on stage and we'll be having conversations and taking questions from the audience as well. But if that's something that is of interest to you, you're intending to attend Empower, and you'd like to be maybe put yourself forward to be part of that panel, please let me know, share your details in the questions pane, and I'll be happy to follow it up with you offline afterwards as well to continue that discussion further on as well. Okay, guys, that is the promos out of the way. Let's get down to business as to why we're really here today. And we're here today to talk about N-Central's REST APIs. We're going to talk about, first of all, what N-Central's APIs are, what a REST API is, what type of account you could use to access these REST APIs, what you can do with these REST APIs. We're going to talk about Swagger. I'm not going to sing the Maroon 5 song this time around. We're also going to talk about how you can securely authenticate with these REST APIs. And then we're going to look at how you can actually use these REST APIs. And at the end, we're going to touch on the very new Enable Developer Portal. More about that later on as well. So remember, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the questions pane as we go through the course. And we're going to run for about the next 50 minutes up to the top of the hour. I do want to point out, guys, before I dive in as well, in the handout section of GoToWebinar, you should find the REST API Essentials companion guide. So in here, you'll find useful additional information. There's some labs that you can kind of walk through to actually authenticate some of the stuff that I'm going to show you today. If you want to have a reminder of a step-by-step guide, you can see that information. There's some appendix which I'm going to touch on as we go through the content of the course as well today as well. So we'll see that guide pop up. But if you want to download it so you have your own copy, you can do so from the handout section. I think if you access GoToWebinar via the web, you might not access the handout section. So if you're having any issues accessing the companion guide, feel free to drop me an email at paul.kelly@n-able.com, and I'd be happy to send you on a copy as well. Alternatively, if you're watching a recording of this later on YouTube or in Enable U, feel free to drop me an email as well, and I'd be happy to send you on that guide as well. So N-central's APIs. Now, while we're here today, obviously, to talk about REST APIs, it is also worth noting that N-central also supports SOAP APIs as well. Now, if you want to learn more information about SOAP APIs, you can actually check out the Leveraging APIs in N-central Bootcamp, which is available in Enable U. Today, we're going to focus on the newer REST APIs. And to be honest, REST APIs are a lot easier to work with. And also we have a lot more functionality now available in these REST APIs, and these are the ones that we're going to develop going forward as well. So if you have some requirement where you need to use SOAP APIs, there is still that functionality available to you. We're not actively developing it, but it's still there and it's not going to go away. But we're going to focus on using the new REST APIs in N-central, and these have been added since N-central 23.9 as well. So what is a REST API? Well, REST API stands for Representational State Transfer Application Programming Interface. And it's an architectural style for designing network applications. REST APIs enable communication between different software systems over the internet by using standard HTTP methods. So there's lots of gets, posts, puts, deletes, that sort of thing as well. REST APIs are widely used for creating web services and can be easily consumed by various clients. So it's a real great way of getting different software applications communicating with each other as well. What type of account should you use when it comes to accessing these REST APIs? Simple answer here is an API only user account. I'm going to demo that for you shortly. But when you're setting up the account, some key important things to consider and do. First of all, make sure you disable MFA. MFA is not supported in APIs as such. So if you have MFA enabled, the API, the account's not going to work for you. Name it, and this goes for everything within N-central, but use good naming conventions. So if there's an account there, make sure, and it's an API only user account, and maybe it's personal to you, make sure it's clearly named within the naming convention, so it's clear to see that anyone reviewing the user accounts as to what the purpose is, why Paul might have two accounts. One is his general user account and one is his API only user account as well. Give the least amount of privileges required for what you want it to do. So if you're setting up maybe API functionality and using an API user for a very specific reason, it might not need all the permissions in the world. Now, for the purposes of today's call, we're just probably going to forward it the default administrator role. But I have in the past looked at creating an API and user account to deploy the Windows agent, for example, and I managed to get it down to about 3 permissions in terms of what I actually needed the account to have in order for it to access N-central, download the relevant installer, and install it using the API as well. So you can get very granular with the permissions, and obviously the more secure the account is, the more critically important that is in this day and age as well. And once you have created the account, what you're going to do is you're going to generate the JSON web token, and you're going to use that rather than the actual username and password that you actually configure when it comes to authenticating via this API only user account as well. So Harry says, is there any way to lock the account down to only be able to make requests from one public IP? That form of granularity in terms of restrictions, Harry, is not currently possible within N-central as it's today, but part of the Fusion project, and obviously this is why we have the little legal disclaimer to start because I can't give any timelines, is to review that entire permissions element of N-central and how that works moving forward as part of the Fusion and the Ecoverse as well. So potentially down the line that might be something that you see added into the product, but as I said today, it's not possible to put that form of restrictions in place. So does the API, Harry also asks the follow-up question, does the API user use the UI port or the HTTPS? So it uses the HTTPS address, Harry. Harry. So if you have a different UI port to access your N-central server, so if it's 8443, which is the default now, and your address is www.ncentralserver.com, it's just going to be, that's going to be the URL you're going to use. You're not going to use ncentralserver.com:8443. That's not needed when it comes to, because the whole purpose of the API you only use is that it doesn't have UI access, so you don't use the UI port there. Thanks for the questions, Harry. Very good. So what can we do with these APIs, I suppose? Now, this is evolving all the time, and it depends on what version of N-central that you're on. You're going to have some or all of these functionalities. But currently today, as of 24.6, which was the most recent release of N-central, there are 16 categories, not 60, 16 categories available, and they contain a total of 70 functions. So the categories that are currently available to you are things like access groups, so you can create and retrieve access groups. You have active issues, so you can retrieve active issues from a customer site. There are some limitations with some of these calls in terms of how much information you can actually pull down. There are custom properties. We're going to look at an example of that later on, how you can actually retrieve custom properties from your N-central server. You can also update these custom properties as well. You can get device tasks. We're going to look at that as an example later on. So you can actually schedule a task to run by an N-central. So if anyone's ever seen Halo's integration with N-central more recently, and Halo's ability to run tasks in N-central is using some of these new API calls as well. Also, we have things like maintenance windows, which was recently added, so you can add, delete, or retrieve maintenance window information. You have registration tokens, which are very handy when it comes to deploying the agents, for example. You have the organization units, so if you need to get the structure of your N-central server, so whether that is the site ID, the customer ID, the parent ID, the SO ID, the org unit ID, for example, that information is very handy when it comes to running these API calls as well. So there's lots of functionalities available. As I said, there's over 70 functions available to you now. If you look at the API companion guide, and this is the first release for this particular bootcamp, but if you scroll right down to the end on page, what page is it? Page 19, you'll see Appendix 5 is a complete list of all the different functions that are available currently within N-central and what version they were released in as such. So in some cases, for example, with the access groups, this was released in preview in 24.3. Preview means it was fully functioning at the time, but it's not the final version of the function. So it might actually have, you might actually find with some of these ones that were released in preview in earlier versions that they've had or increased functionality added to them since in terms of filtering or sorting functionality available within the API calls as well. These are also color coordinated for you as well, depending on the role that they're doing. So we have get, obviously is pulling information. We have post, we have put, so you can actually write information. We have patch, which is modify information, and we have delete as well. And if you ever want to kind of learn more about all these operations, somebody wrote a handy little blog about this recently, which is, I suppose we're going to talk about Swagger in a bit more details, but if you type into Google understanding Swagger operations, you'll find a complete guide to what all these different actions do within the UI that we'll look at in a few moments as well. So there's a huge list of functions available, and this obviously is going to continue to increase and grow as well. So keep an eye out on your N-central release notes as new versions come out to see what functions are added in there as well. Some questions coming in as well, guys. Preja is just suggesting to Harry that, not that we've done it, assuming you're using Azure, so maybe your IDP could do the login restrictions rather than N-central. So Harry, there's something that Preja is suggesting as a workaround. I'm not sure, Preja, if Harry can see the questions and vice versa. So If that's something that you want to discuss later on, maybe Prejean, how you can connect and Slack, for example, and have that conversation as well. Harry asked the question, are the registration tokens just site or device and probe as well? The registration tokens are customers and sites is what they are, Harry, at the moment. Okay, so next we're going to talk about Swagger. So I probably jumped the gun showing you the Swagger blog, but if you're not familiar with Swagger already, it's an open source framework that allows developers to design, document, and consume REST APIs. It provides a set of tools to create interactive documentation for APIs, making it easier, I suppose, for developers to understand how to use and interact with these APIs as well. So some of the key features of Swagger are the API documentation element of it. So it allows us to automatically generate documentation from the API code describing available endpoints, request parameters, responses, and example usage. You have an interactive interface, which we're going to look at in a few moments, the Swagger UI, and that offers a web-based interface where users can actually explore and test out the APIs directly within their browsers, and allows for making simple requests, seeing responses, and understanding the endpoints without actually having to leave the documentation that's available in Swagger as well. And also standardization. Help maintains consistency and adherence to standards by defining a formal structure for API descriptions using the Open API specification. And actually, you'll find that more and more vendors are using Swagger when it comes to APIs these days. As such, I know, for example, FortiGate use it. I know DNS Filter use it, for example. So, if you're familiar with the Swagger UI from other APIs already, you'll probably be able to navigate around the N-Central one pretty easy as well. So Swagger really kind of simplifies API development by facilitating the creation of comprehensive, well-structured and easy understandable API documentation. So what we're going to do is we're going to, first of all, create an API-only user account, and then we're going to use that API-only user account to authenticate with our REST APIs in Swagger as well. So what we're going to do, first of all, is jump into our N-Central server. We're going to create a user account. I find it works best when you create a user account at the service organization level. I've seen partners create API user accounts in the past. At the system level, if you have your own instance of N-Central, a lot of the code and the script that's out there tends to be based off the SO level user. So my recommendation is to create the API user at the SO level that you want to access as such. So we're going to go down to administration. We're going to go to user management, and we're going to go to users, and we're going to click on create a new user as such. So I'm going to call this API PK, and I'm going to call the last name Bootcamp because I'm going to use good naming conventions. Try and remember how to type. In terms of my login name, we're not actually going to use this as such, but I'm just going to keep it the same naming convention as I have above, n-able.com. Passwords obviously must meet the password complexity that you have set on your N-Central instance. So I'm going to pop in a password here. We're not actually going to use these credentials, but if it doesn't meet the credentials or requirements here, you won't be able to save the account. Then in terms of roles, as I said, you can get as granular as you want here. As you know, I've created an agent reinstall role, which is locked down to the minimum amount needed as such, and you can do the same thing for whatever your API user is designed to do. For the purposes of the bootcamp today, we're just going to use the default administrator role. Under the access groups, again, you can be more granular in here. So if you want to restrict this to certain organizations within your N-Central instance, you can obviously select those customers or sites. For me, I'm going to just choose all the customers at the moment as well. Then under a user details tab, I think I must have an API user bootcamp already. So I'm going to pop in a 2 there. What's going on here? Why is this not working? Oh, the old equals sign is what was promised. Up to Daisy. I actually jumped the gun too early. But we're going to come back into our user account. Under user information in here, this is where you must need MFA to be turned off. And then under your API access, you're going to use an API only user account here as well. So you're going to go ahead and save this. So even if you try and log in with the username and password to the UI, it's not going to work for you as such. Once you have the account saved, you're going to click back into your user account. You're going to click on your API access, and you're going to generate your JSON Web Token. Now, you're only going to see this code once, so you want to copy that and document it in your password management product. If you copy this code, put it into an application, put it into a script, for example, and then for whatever reason you find that you need it somewhere else, you can't lay your hands on it, and you regenerate, you're going to have to update those codes as well. So make sure you document this code properly once you have it as well. So we go ahead and make a copy of that there. So next, once we have our user set up, we want to authenticate with the REST APIs using the Swagger interface. So to access the Swagger interface, we're just going to duplicate our tab here. And after our server URL, we're going to go /API-Explorer, and this will bring us into the Swagger interface as such. So here you can see all the different categories that we spoke about earlier on. There's 16 different categories, and underneath each one, you can see all the different function calls that are available to you as well, depending on what version of N-central you're on. So if you're not all running 2024.6, you're going to see different options, different categories, and different functions here. And again, a reminder, if you need to kind of understand what's available in each one, you can use the companion guide to find out where these functions are and which ones are released as well. So if you're looking for something you don't have, for example, it's a handy way of finding out what version you need to be on for as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the Authorize tab, and we're going to paste our JSON Web Token that we just created, and we're going to click on Authorize, or we're going to click on Close. And what we need to do then is we need to complete the process, but we need to exchange the API token with a refresh token. So we're going to do that using the authentication post authenticate call. We're going to click on Try It Out. We're going to click on Execute, and we can see here we get code 200, which is authentication is successful. Here is the token that we need to complete the process. We're just going to make a quick copy of that. We're going to paste that up into our API access token, and now we're authenticated. If I click on Authorize, now we're authenticated, and now we can start to use the Swagger interface to test API calls and get more information out of our N-central server. And we'll look at that in a couple of moments as well. So now that we are authenticated with the REST APIs, we're going to look at getting some information out of the API Explorer. And this is, not something that you're going to do on an ongoing basis, but this is a really useful way of testing out calls that you might have to get the information that you're looking for as such. So anytime I'm building a script or I'm doing some kind of integration between an application and N-central, if I need to understand what the REST API call looks like, I'm going to use the Swagger interface first of all to get that call correct, and then I can start building it into my script or putting it into my application to communicate with my my N-central application as such. So we're going to jump back into our Swagger interface. And what we're going to do first of all is we're going to come down to our organization unit. So this started out as customers in the very early releases, but we've soon updated to organization units because as you can see here, not only does it give us customer information, but it also gives us site information, it gives us service org information, and allows us to actually create customer sites and service orgs in here as well. What we're going to do is we're going to get a list of customers first of all as a simple call. So if we come down to our get API customers, we can click and expand here. We can see if we click on Try It Out that we have various different options that we can include in here as well. So I can choose the page number, so how many pages of customers I want to retrieve. So if I only want to retrieve a small amount of customers, for example, maybe a very large server and I want to reduce the amount of information I'm pulling out, maybe I'm going to sort by or select using expression where the customer name contains a certain value, for example. You can pop that information in there as well. You can also choose the sorting order. So if we want to do ascending or descending in here, and you can sort by various fields that are available to you as well. And to get an understanding of the fields that you can choose, you can see a sample of a successful query here. So I can see we get customer ID, we can get customer name, org unit, parent ID, external ID, etc., etc., etc. So if I want to retrieve a list of all customers and I want the customers in sorted in ascending order from customer name, what I'm going to do is just pop the customer name here. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to choose to pop that into my sort by field, and I'm going to choose ascending. And I'm going to go ahead and execute the script. We can see we get response 200, and we can see here the customer name is Cybersecurity Labs. Then we have Dell Customer View, then we have FM Tray Research, then we have Joe's Breakfix, then we have Celtic Cider, Marky Mark's Flying Circus. So you can see here that it has actually generated the information for me and sorted it in the order as well. And why this is really useful, guys, is, you know, if I want to use this query now in something like a PowerShell script, you can actually see in the curl here the information that you would include in the API call. So the API call is the URL of your N-Central server, /API/customers, and we can see that up the top here as well. But then you can see we have included a question mark, sort by customer name, and sort order equals ascending. So this is giving you the information and giving you the actual format that you would need to use when it comes to running this within scripts. This is very useful as well. If we want to try something different, maybe we want to get some device information. So we're going to come down to our devices here. I'm going to choose to get all my devices. So in here, we can choose to try it out again. I can choose to select by using expression. I can sort by again. And in here, I could also use a filter. So if I wanted to actually get my device filters, first of all, and find out what my workstation Windows was, for example, or Windows Workstation laptop filter, you can come in here, you can try your device filters, you can execute that, and you can get a list of all the different filters that are available to you and the filter ID. So if we scroll down towards the bottom, well, we have, you could make it, I should have probably done sort by filter name. So we'll pop that in and we'll do descending and we'll execute that, and hopefully we'll have our Windows ones at the top. Sorry, I choose the wrong one. So we'll execute that there. So you can see when we actually run something and there's an error, threw up an error code straight away. So now we have our old filters, these, all the old ones. And then I get down to things like my server's goal plan, self-healing, lots of different information here, all the different customers. So you can see I can actually use these filter IDs here then when it comes to actually getting a device by popping that filter ID in here as well. But I'm just going to get all the devices at the moment. So we're going to go ahead and execute that. Again, we get the response code at 200. I get all the information here. I can actually download this as a JSON file if I want and have that information available to me. Alternatively, and we can see that in VS Code. So we can see all the information in here. Alternatively, I can just copy and paste this into Notepad as well. So if I want to maybe quickly find an information like the device ID, I can pop this in here. I can type in an IP address and I can find that IP address then, and I have the device ID that I can actually query if I want to get more information as well. So we can see here how we can really use the kind of Swagger interface to pull information out of N-Central, test it to make sure it's working, and obviously we can use that then to to go deeper and go further by building scripts or building integrations with different applications as well. So next we're going to look at using the API Explorer to run a task in N-Central. So if you're looking at integrating a ticketing solution or PSA solution with your N-Central environment, you might want your technician to be able to trigger an action from your N-Central server when something is reported within your ticketing solution as such. So having the ability to actually schedule and run a task will allow you to do that via your PSA solution as well. So this is something that when we launched the new REST APIs in 23.9 was not currently possible with the old APIs. So we wanted out of the box to give you new functionality. So this is one of the first things that we actually designed with these new REST APIs to allow you to do something that you couldn't previously do with the APIs as well. So what we're going to do is jump back into our Swagger interface. We're just going to minimize a few of these windows at the moment. And what we're going to do is we're going to pop down to our scheduled tasks. Under scheduled tasks, we can actually choose post. So the tasks we've been running at the moment have been gets. We're putting information. Now we're actually putting information into N-Central. We're telling it to do something. So we're going to post that. So we're going to click out and try it out. When we click and try it out using a Swagger interface, you can see here there's information that needs to be included in order to run the task as such. So first of all, you need a unique task name. So I'm going to call this Bootcamp PK Test 1. Now it must be a unique name, obviously. Now you can obviously use the same name over and over again, but you won't be able to differentiate what task is which when you go to look at it in Central. So always try and use a unique name in here. You need an item ID. Now the item is the actual the script or automation policy that you're going to run from your N-Central instance. How do you find that out, you might ask? Well, if you come back into your N-Central server, you go to configuration and go to schedule tasks and scripts and software repository, you'll see on the far right hand side the repository ID. If you're not seeing it, it might just be unselected in your N-Central instance. So you just click on the little column selector, make sure it is selected as such. Now, the ones that are set at the system level tend to be low numbers and they cannot be enabled here. But anyone that is actually added at the service organization level, you can enable, so make runnable as such. So by making it runnable, you can actually use this repository ID to run this task. So by default, none of the items in your repository are runnable unless you enable it. So you can get very granular in terms of what can actually be triggered via the API as well. I'm just going to do something simple like check UAC status. And if we go ahead and look, we can see here there's a Windows UAC system status settings. And this is actually set at the system level. So I can't use this one at the moment. I can't turn this on. But what I can do is I can actually clone this so that I can actually create a version that I can run myself. So I'm just going to pop in here, get the name of it. And what I'm going to do is UAC, and we're going to click on clone. I'm going to pop this in here. I'm just going to call it SO, and I'm going to copy and paste so I get a little description. And then we can see now, because it's at the service organization level, I can turn this on, I can make it runnable, and I can use this repository ID then to run as part of my API call. So we're going to go ahead and copy that, and we're going to pop that in as the ID. The task item then is either going to be a script. So if it's a batch file or a PowerShell script, for example, it's going to be a script. But in my case, if we pop back here, we see the blue and green clogs, which indicates an automation policy. So we're going to pop that in there instead. So between our quotation marks, we're going to pop in automation policy. This is case sensitive, so you need to make sure you type it correctly, which is always dangerous to me. And also you have to include no spaces. So AUTOMATION POLICY. I think that's correct. The customer ID is going to be the ID of the customer that we're going to run this against. So we might use this is a device here, it's Celtic Cider Company. The customer ID is 133. It's actually under site, so if I want to run it at the site level, I can choose 133 or 134. So we'll pop in 134 for the ID. And then the device ID obviously is the information that we have here. So we're going to copy that. We're going to paste that in here as well. And in this particular case, with this script or this automation policy, it doesn't require any credentials. So we're going to leave the credentials as blank, and it doesn't have any parameters. It's just pulling information for us. So we're going to remove all the information between the square brackets. So this is what we're left with. We can go ahead and click on execute, and we can see here we got 201, which means it's a successful creation of a direct support task. So we can see the task ID is created here. If we pop back into our N-Central server, we can click on configuration, schedule tasks, and add and delete. And if we go to direct support tasks, then we'll see that task created here as such. So it's created it instantly, hasn't run just yet, but once it runs, then it will show up here. It'll tell us when it last completed. And when it does complete, then we'll actually be able to use the task ID that we see here to get more information. So if I want to check the status of the task, for example, I can come in here and I can click on my scheduled task ID status, again, check it out, click it on, pop in the ID here, and execute it. we can see here that it's pending at the moment, as indicates by our status here as well. So not only can you execute the tasks using the Swagger API, you can actually check the status of the tasks in here as well. Now, next, we're going to look at using PowerShell with REST APIs. And again, if you're interested in trying any of these, maybe you haven't used the REST APIs before, all of these actions that we're looking at today in the bootcamp is in the lab companion manual here as such. So if you want to look at how you authenticate, for example, you want to look at how you create a user in N-central with the correct permissions, you can see it's all documented for you in here as well. And if you scroll down to the appendix down the bottom, you can see here the sample code that allows you to authenticate with your APIs using PowerShell. And then there's a lot of different actions you can use. And if you go to the automation cookbook and search up NC REST API, you'll find about 16, 17, 18 different sample PowerShell scripts that you can download and use within your own scripting as well. So when it comes to using PowerShell, the first thing we need to do is we need to, like we did previously with the Swagger, we need to exchange our JSON web token for an authentication token. So there is a pre-built code in the companion guide that allows you to do this, or you can download this sample script from the automation cookbook. You pop in your URL in here, you pop in your JSON web token, you go ahead and click on run, and it should do nothing. It should just return the cursor back to normal as such. That just means that it ran successfully and we're now authenticated. So we're now talking, and you're going to use this as part of any PowerShell script that you create to talk to your REST APIs. Excuse me. So next we're going to look at pulling out information from N-central, and we're going to do something that probably people ask me the most about on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, and that's getting custom property information out of N-central. So previously, we had a little export tool, a little GUI that we built as part of a hackathon here a couple of years ago that was using SOAP APIs. What I've done since the new REST APIs is I've replicated all the functionality that you could do through the old SOAP APIs, but now using REST APIs tends to be a lot more robust. Excuse me. The voice isn't talk after 2 weeks off over Christmas. The voice isn't used to all this talking just yet, guys. So get up to speed. So apologies. But you'll find all the functions that were previously available within the GUI tool available as sample scripts in the automation cookbook. In this particular case, we have the option to export a custom property for multiple devices. You can see in most of the scripts in the automation cookbook, it'll tell you what the script does, and it'll tell you where the data is exported to. It also allows you to define what the parameters you want to use. So I'm looking for BitLocker key real, but I might want to do this for all my customers. So I'm going to pop in 50 as a default option when it comes to running it. So you can use 50 as almost a default for any service organization. And if you go ahead and click on run, we go ahead and click on OK. This should pull all the custom properties from all the devices that have it available here. You can see it's got our different customers, it's got our site name, it's got a device name, the device ID, the property name as well. We can also see, if we scroll down to the bottom, that this information exported in my case to C temp device custom properties. So if we pop into our C folder and we go to our temp drive, we should have a brand new file created just here. We can see we do. We pop into that then and we can see all that information in here as well. So we have the ability then to obviously work with this file. So I can obviously filter. So I can choose my filter and then I can actually filter for particular customer. So if I just want to see Celtic, for example, I can do it quite easy now to say this information. I can see where the keys are found as well. You can also use this script to just pull out certain information. So if I don't want to do it for all my customers, but I want to do it for a particular customer, I can obviously get my customer IDs using the APIs, or I can just pop into N-central and go, okay, I want to go to my customers and I want to get Celtic cider, which is 133. So that's what we're going to use in our custom ID here. So if I run 133 now and hit run, this time around, rather than pulling all our customers, it will just pull the customer ID Celtic Cider and all the sites and devices that pertain to that as well. And again, we can see now there's a new file. It's obviously smaller in size, and this now just has the Celtic Cider Company information in here as well. So this is just one example of how you can use PowerShell. It's a very powerful way of interacting with APIs. We build out functions that gives us this information. This pulls the customer, this pulls the devices, this pulls the devices by customer ID, this pulls the device custom properties, and then we combine this all into a table, which we're obviously outputting at the end as well. So if you want to kind of learn more about how you kind of put these scripts together, maybe you don't particularly want to do this exact thing, certainly taking these scripts down and looking at components and we will help you develop PowerShell scripts as well. So last but not least today, guys, we're going to talk about the brand new enabled developer portal, and it's going to make life even easier for you to work with not only N-Central's APIs, but the APIs for all the products right across the N-Central product portfolio as well. Right now, the developer API is limited to just, I think, N-Central. I think maybe Take Control is coming in there as well, but you're going to see more and more of this in the coming days, weeks, months ahead. So if you haven't looked at this before, if you go to developer.n-able.com, you will see the developer portal in here. So this gives you all the information that you need to know about the APIs. Right now, as you can see, we have N-Central and Take Control available, but more are coming in due course. If we want to learn more about the Enable N-Central APIs, which is why we're all here today, if you click down on that, you can see there's a Getting Started guide here. There's a Quick Start guide. There's a reference API guide. There's information on the SOAP APIs, the legacy APIs that are available in here as well. We talk about authentication, organization management, device management APIs. So all the information you need about all the APIs are available within this developer portal. What's really cool in here is, if you want to use the search functionality, you can actually use it to generate the scripts. So you could say, write a PowerShell script that pulls all my customers and sorts by customer name. So go ahead and click on enter, and you can see here now it obviously will give us a script that we can obviously test within our own lab environments then. So it's produced the URL, which obviously you pop in your own N-Central instance, your JSON web token, and you can see the script that it pulls the information, and then it will either write out the information that you want, or it will say if there's an error, write up no customers are found. So if you've never kind of used PowerShell before and you're keen to get started with the APIs, this is a great cheat code, guys, to help you get all the information you need to get started and use, generative AI to help you build out the scripts that you're going to need to interact with these as well. And with that, guys, it's time for some questions. I know we've been addressing questions as we've gone along today. If you have any further questions, please feel free to ask them in the questions pane now. Reminder, if you have any follow-up questions, you're more than welcome to drop me an email at paul@kelly@n-able.com. Okay, Bjorn says, will Inside Armum get a REST API? So I suppose what's going to happen most likely, Bjorn, is as we develop more and more functions in the Ecoverse and Fusion that are built into both N-Central and Insight, the APIs will be available that way as such. So yes, it will happen, but it will happen kind of as part of the Ecoverse project as such as well. Matthew asked a question. Silly question. Question 2 later on today. Is that the same as session 1 as I signed up for both? Totally new to Enable. No, Matthew, if you don't know, you don't know. So no silly questions here. Technically, the content is the same, but when it comes to N-Central related boot camps, I tend to run this session, the session 1, because I'm located in Ireland. So time works for me. And then Jason Murphy tends to run session 2 unless one of us happens to be traveling, and then the other covers for each other and vice versa as well. So technically the content's the same. I'm probably like a little bit better in terms of delivery, personality, humor. Jason calls himself the first Central Ed nerd, but we all know, it's all insecurity on his part. So no difference in content really, Matthew, as such, just different presenters, but the content should be the same. So you can sign up and you can maybe heckle Jason and say this Paul is way better earlier on if you're registered. Bjorn says, I think it was more of a follow-up question to his, will Insight Inside RMM get REST APIs? So I think I covered that already, Bjorn. Pre-J says, API customer ID works fine when running using the customer level, but not using the customer ID for a site. Do you need to use org unit ID for the site and then get the parent and then get that customer name for that? Yes, I think that's the better way of doing it, pre-J as such, and that's why we brought in the org units as well. If you want to drop me an email, we want to take that offline. I know with some of the custom properties, I actually use an org unit ID to actually get the information and the parent ID around that, so that whether the device is at a site level or a customer level, I can pull that information. I think even maybe we have a quick look into this. Do I use, I'm just going to see what I use here. So this is using the customer ID. It might be a different policy I'm thinking of now as such, but certainly, yes, I tend to use kind of more org unit to get the parent ID to tie the two together as well. So that would be my recommendation. But if you want to drop me an email, pre-Jan, separate if you have a specific ask or question there, I'd be happy to take that one offline, which as well. Any other questions, guys? Okay, good to be back in the swing of things. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, initially, kind of pre-Jan, when we launched the APIs, we had kind of, it was customer site SO was the options available to such. We then brought in the org units and the parent ID, and I find that works better because you can query, if you get a site ID, you can then run a query to say, is this a site or is this a customer? And then you can, run other queries to get information as well. So it gives you more flexibility when you use the org units over kind of customer site level as well. Okay, guys. Well, thanks for your time and attendance today. Hopefully we will see you all again in a couple hours on the N-Central January office hours. Next N-Central related bootcamp will be towards the end of this month. I think it's on the 28th of January, but you can go to enable.com/events page to keep me honest, and that's going to be where Jason and I count down our 10 favorite things to automate within N-Central as well. So we kind of have updated our 15 things you can and should update, and we're going to focus this specifically for N-Central partners as well. So before it was kind of generic across both platforms, but these are 10 things that everyone should be automating, we feel, within your N-Central environment. So if you haven't signed up for that, make sure you go to the events page and register for that one as well. So thanks guys for your time and attendance today. I hope you found this beneficial. Don't forget to download the companion manual, and if there's any questions, you can pop me an email and I'd be happy to help. I want to talk to you hopefully in a couple hours on the N-Central office hours. So speak to you then.